I didn't know how much chemo was going to hurt. Like the pain associated, the physical pain. I'm like, man, there's layers to this thing. I didn't want to let myself get too low in my mindset and my mood because I was afraid if I get too low, I won't be able to pull myself back up. And so I thought about what if there are other people who look like me that feel this same way? And I don't want any, and I thought about my soldiers, like especially female soldiers who may get into this situation. What would I want them to know? So then I started saying, I'm going to have to talk about this. And then that was scary. I was like, man, I'm going to do this thing. I need to do this. It's a rare form of cancer. Who else can do this? Nobody. So we have to do it. You know what I mean? Like in sharing, I think that gave me strength. And then having the support of friends and family has been supportive. Initially, I didn't tell anyone really the first time around. I told someone in my leadership and a peer because I had to have someone take me to the hospital and bring me back. But besides that, I was like, I don't need to worry a bunch of people about this. And I was concerned about what it would do for my career. I, ended up not staying in, partially related to this and other things, other health issues. But it's just, there isn't anything else that or anyone else I've ever met who's explained or described anything like this in my family or friends. So it was all fresh and new. But trying to find community and support and build it. So that's when I started sharing some of my story on TikTok a little bit and then finding support groups. So I think we might have mentioned that a little bit earlier. Some of the support groups. Oh yeah, when you mentioned yours. So I went to a virtual group online and when I was initially diagnosed, and I was the only brown face in the room. And I'm listening to the stories and I was petrified. Someone even called it out. They're like, poor Tiffany. I'm like, yep, I don't know any of the words that you're using. The terminology is foreign to me. I'm overwhelmed. I am overwhelmed and internally freaking out. But later, when my cancer came back and I found an in-person support group, that helped a lot. So anybody else have any support groups or other sources of?
And I can admit to this because I always tell people be transparent because I work in behavioral health. And so I'm always encouraging people to go to support groups, right? And so they asked me if I wanted to go to counseling, if I wanted to go to therapy or do any type of support. And I was like, no, I'm fine. I don't need it. And I regret that. If there was anything I could change, I would have changed that. Because there were several nights where I was just crying myself to sleep. I didn't want to bother my husband or my mom because you can't get up and move like you used to and all that. And it was just a lot. And then there was also times where it seemed like I was seeing pregnant women everywhere. And so that was starting to take a toll on me. And I was like, if I see one more person pregnant, I'm gonna scream. But that took a toll because then it got to the point where I felt like I wasn't a good enough woman. And that part is still a little bit emotional for me because we always wanted to have children. And we've tried. And I also think that my cancer was there longer than what I had anticipated because I was pregnant and then the sac collapsed, or I had an ectopic pregnancy in 2008. And so just different little things. I'm like, well, maybe that was there and that was preventing me to have a successful pregnancy. But when everything is taken away, it's kind of like, oh, what are you going to do? And when they ask you about fertility, you want to freeze your eggs and all this other stuff, you're thinking about the dollar sign of how much that costs let alone the cost of treatment for cancer alone. Yes, like I can't afford that. So you make a decision just to take it, you know? But my husband said, well, I don't want you to make a decision too quick to where you regret it. And I said, well, I'd rather for me to be here, or do you want us to try to have a child? And then, you know, there's so many ifs that could happen. And that was a big struggle because having a support group is very important. People able to talk to somebody about that, because your family can't really relate. You know, they have children, somebody else have kids. But when you don't have any and people ask you, hey, when you gonna have some children? You know, it's kind of like a slap in the face sometimes. So that's really an emotional part for me. And I know there's different ways of having kids, and you know, you can adopt and all that. But when you're married and you want to, what's the word I'm looking for? Keep your husband generation going, so to speak. You kind of want to fulfill that, you know. So, yeah, that comes with a lot of mixed emotions. I can talk all day about that, but yeah.
You mentioned a key piece about building your support group, your community. And as they say, grief is nonlinear. So for me, I remember the defining moment that led me to realize that I needed to figure out something for myself in terms of support. I literally was sitting in a dark bedroom. It was like 3:00 and I had the blinds pulled and I was just so angry, so heavy. And I literally just started Googling options. I was like, my family does not understand to a T what I'm going through. And although I have friends, they don't really understand. So I need something. And although I didn't believe that the formalized options for support groups, when you go in and you introduce yourself to strangers, I knew that wasn't for me. So, but just having to piece that together on my own it required me to pull from within what little bit of strength I had in that moment to advocate for myself with no one around. You know, the advocacy never stops. And it's like when the calls stop, when the visitors leave, you still have to do your best to maneuver through all that comes with the diagnosis. And the anger, well, everyone's treatment experience was different. I would say for me, chemo was the easiest part. It was the radiation, that mental anguish that I endured day in and day out, having to start my workday out at 7:30 in the morning, going to radiation. It was horrible. It was horrible. I felt like a piece of meat when they were, repositioning my body. So, like I said, everyone's journey is different, but that for me was the most difficult part of treatment. Like just every single day for over a month, just having to go in and to endure that. And knowing that I could avoid it, but it could have been detrimental, and have long-term effects that wouldn't have been so favorable. It just, like I said, there's just so many layers to this that people don't realize that we have to kind of maneuver through as one person. Just one person is, so.
The absolute worst part is losing your hair, losing your crown. I know it grows back. Everybody says, oh, it's just hair. It'll grow back. But I've been growing this for a long time. And when it came out, it's just, I couldn't be brave enough to shave it. A lot of people go through brave shaves to shave it off, and before it falls out, and I couldn't do that. I just braided her up, and and it was within the first week and a half of the first treatment of chemo, it came out. I just had her in a halo type thing, and I was taking it down just to moisturize it again, and it started coming out. And I didn't say anything to anybody. My husband was in the other room, and I just got up and I got in the shower and I just cried. And I cried and I cried. And then he came in there and checked on me, and he was like, "You okay?" And I was like, "I am absolutely not okay. I'm not." So I put her in I say her because I do identify. I put her in a Ziploc bag. And I still have that bag. So I said, when everything grows back to the same length is when I'll get rid of you. I know that sounds crazy, but that was the hardest part. And even, they have things that can try to help save your hair, right? The cool packs or cool caps or whatever they call. And that's even $500. $500 here each time that you need to use it. And so that's money. And I'm like, you can't afford that. And then you have to pay copays for the treatment. So yeah, I think losing, especially like you said, when you're in high school and going through that, that's even worse, being an adult. And I didn't feel comfortable wearing, like being bald. I didn't feel comfortable. I had to go back to work in the midst of my treatment, and they had me kind of confined because I was in a hospital setting. I work in a hospital setting, but I didn't feel comfortable. So you have to put on wigs that may or may not look right, and then not to mention the hot flashes. You got to take that wig off.
I didn't even mess around with wigs. I was so hot during chemo. So I was like, absolutely not. Like, I can't. Like, I don't want any clothes. I don't want anything on
me. Right.
But I resonated with you when we were talking about how the hair started to fall out. Where you would just go like this, and then and you're like, oh, so this is happening. Mm-hmm. I remember I called my hairdresser because I just wanted to know I wash my hair. I called my doctor. The doctor's like, yeah, here's this special shampoo or whatever. And the next day I was gonna go get just I already had a bob, but I was gonna just go get a little bit shorter because I was I want control over this, And I got in the shower and immediately my whole head is just clumped. And I was just what is and I mean, I'm screaming, I'm crying. I'm what is going on? I'm asking, my parents for help. And when they realized oh my goodness, literally her entire, it was just clumps, everywhere. I had to shave it off. And I remember literally covering anything that was a mirror in my house. I didn't want to look at myself. I was and I think that's when the rage started for me. And first I want to say, I love feminine rage. I think, especially as Black women, we're told to suppress so much anger. I think anger is very healthy. But at 16, I didn't know that. And my parents are pretty emotionally intelligent, but I didn't know that. They validated my feelings, but I didn't really know, talking about what I would have done differently. I wish I knew then what I knew now about rage in particular. Because I just suppressed so much. And I think that that's a big part of why it took me so long to really kind of come in touch with who little Camille was and who I am now, because of this. But yeah, I didn't want to look at myself. It was just hard. And I just remember I don't like toxic positivity at all. I'm very much I'm a logical person. I'm very emotional, but I'm a logical person. I'm also a behavioral health professional. So I don't really need much. I'm the kind of person I'm going to cry, but I'm going to do it. Just let me have my moment. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so people were forcing India Irie, I am not my hair, down my throat. And I'm I don't need this. I actually all you're doing is really making me I don't need you to put me on this survivor pedestal. Let me be the little girl that I am. I don't need to be adultified. I need to be able to cry. That's all I need. You know what I mean? I need to be able just to feel. And I think that was the hardest part where it was I got this this survivor cake way before I was ready. And that was really hard because I'm like, I'm still struggling. Like, I'm not going through chemo anymore, but like, I'm still struggling. Like, they finally took my port out, but I'm still struggling. Like, I don't think you all understand. Like, and it felt like quicksand. Like, it felt like the deeper, like the more I tried to be like, hey, like, I'm here. You know what I mean? Like, the deeper I sank, it's like nobody got it. And that was really tough. Definitely being at school in high school, like being bald was very hard. But again, I was just so hot where like I'd wear like scarves and stuff, but like I never wore wigs. I went to prom bald. Because at one point I was just like, I just can't. Like, I'm so hot.
Right.
Even if I wanted to, I just
Like, it's hot.
can't. I think being a Black woman, cancer haver or survivor, for me is like, I'm either like gaslit at best or just like not believed at worst. Like, there's never maybe like, I've yet to, I don't think have like a positive experience specifically when it comes to like the intersection of my Blackness and being a cancer survivor. Like, I just, you know, like you're in all this pain, you're in all this distress. And I think I've just been made to feel like I was crazy. And then I think especially post-cancer, because, you know, like we were saying before, like if it's not cancer, then it's like, okay, well, like Camille, like you have to learn how to just deal with this. And I'm like, I just don't believe that. Like, something is telling me I'm just not just supposed to be like living in pain. You know what I mean? And so like, I think that has been really hard, especially because like you were talking about like having to advocate for yourself when you were in distress. It's insanity. Like it's a lot. It's just like mentally draining. So yeah, I just think I'm gaslit a lot and just not believed a lot. And then now I'm a military spouse. So, you know, too, where like every few years I now have to establish a new care team. And I think especially like the longer I'm out of, you know, treatment and things like that, the more doctors are so confused on why I'm like, nope, I am requesting like SCA 125. I'm requesting a gynecologist. Like they just don't get it. And then having to like re-explain that every 3 years, like, you know, as you know, we're stationed in all these various places. That's very, it just reinforces like this feeling that like nobody's going to believe me. And that's hard, really hard. And did you feel like that too? Especially because like you were in, you know, like during the time of.
So, well, not exactly, because I had my diagnosis and then like about a year later, I think I was out of the military. So now I'm in the civilian sector, you know, figuring this whole thing out. And it's interesting. I mean, there's like highs and lows, because you have like groups of people that I feel are helpful, or they really want to be helpful. They want to learn. And then there's others who are like, I don't know, like I'm speaking a completely different language.
In the last episode, hear how community and support groups became a lifeline for these women.